America's president has declared economic war on the BRICS nations, and I gotta say, I'm here for it. For those of you who don't know, the BRICS nations represent Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries are not an alliance, they are an economic cooperative trying to seek trade outside the dollar network and the SWIFT trade system. The ironic thing about the BRICS nations and how they are priding themselves on this alignment is that they didn't even come up with this name on their own. It was actually an economist at Goldman Sachs by the name of Jim O'Neill from Britain. But what exactly is the American president doing to these BRICS nations? First, our president likes to talk a lot of smack about them. He said that they would end quickly if they ever form in any meaningful way. Like, I don't know, try to set up a currency that would be used outside the dollar network, which they don't even have because the BRICS main bank is powered by the United States dollar. He also made it clear that any country that aligns with BRICS anti-American policies get an extra 10% tariff. And starting August 1st, India will get slapped with 25% on all their exports to the United States. But the reason he's said so far is because of India's relationship with Russia and them buying quite a bit of Russia's oil. In fact, India is Russia's second largest customer. Russia sells a great deal of oil, natural gas, and weapons to the Indian subcontinent, but who knows for how much longer. And a bill has been proposed to the Senate called the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, in which a 500% tariff not only gets thrown on Russia, but also any country that is purchasing Russia uranium or Russian oil. What has happened? Indian state refiners have paused Russian oil purchases. Not a very good sign for Putin. India purchased $66 billion of goods from Russia last year, and the vast majority of it was oil. So how much of an economic shock will this be for Russia? At least in the 10 to 20 or 30s of billions of dollars. Remember that Russia pulled in about $394 billion from exports last year, and the vast majority of that was, like I said, oil, natural gas, and other fossil fuels. They have a very simple economy. Their rank of economic complexity is well below 60th place. As you can see, they are near the undeveloped nations, while the more developed countries like China, France, the United States, UK, they're in the first tier of economic complexity. Also, compare Russia's total exports last year to the United States exports of $1.9 trillion. And look at how much more diverse America's export pool is than Russia's. But now India is at a major economic loss because they can no longer import Russian oil for dirt cheap, refine it on their own, and then sell it to European countries for a nice hefty profit. Then there's South Africa. See, there was something called the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which allowed South Africa to enter U.S. markets duty and tariff-free. Our current president just revoked it. He's also slapping between 10 to 41% on South African goods coming into the United States. And after 4 or 5 years of South African leadership doing nothing but talking smack about how bad the United States is and our economic time is up, they are working on a last-minute trade deal to try to save whatever exemptions they can. And then there's Brazil, which just got slapped with a 50% tariff on their exports to the United States. For those of you who are curious, I'm not going to mention China because we all know they are getting tariffed up the wazoo and their economy is in trouble as well. And believe it or not, the purchasing power of the American dollar has actually increased since we've gotten all this news. As you can see, the DXY is back at 100, which means the dollar is at a decent level of strength. Let's look at how the BRICS currencies are doing against the strength of the dollar, which I have right here. And I'm using the time frame of when Russia invaded Ukraine to today. So February of 2022, the DXY was actually at 95, but now, even though it was well above 100 for quite some time, it's right back up, went up maybe 5 or 6% since then. Well, look at that. The South African rand went from being 7 cents to 5 cents. That's more of a 20% drop. The Indian rupee went from being about 1.4 cents to just under a penny or at it, so a 30% drop. The Brazilian real was almost 22 cents, now they're 18, so okay, a 20% drop. The Chinese yuan was almost 16 cents when Russia invaded, and now it's at 14. But China works to artificially devalue their currency to keep their imports competitive, but that's backfiring on them right now. Let's look at the Russian ruble, which was almost 2 cents when they decided to invade, and now about a penny, so a 50% drop. Why don't we just call the Russian ruble Eastern European toilet paper? So these tariffs against BRICS existing and any country that wants to help Russia will help this little economic cooperative eat each other internally, and of course, turn their backs on Russia. Because I bet you if Brazil, India, South Africa, maybe even China, if they start dropping or pausing overall Russian oil and weapons purchases, then they're going to see these tariffs lifted, or at least significantly reduced. So I have to admit, it may have been wrong for me to be against tariffing certain countries unilaterally, but I still think it is a huge mistake to tariff our allies and our strong trading partners like the EU and Japan. I am the Geo Husar, and you should watch Joey Contino and Intel Guy's analysis on the Russia-India trade spat. Thanks for watching.